Hey, this is Glenn Livingston, and I am here with life coach Michael Brown. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. I'm a little confused about whether you prefer to be called Mike or Michael.
Mike is fine. You can call me Mike.
Okay, my grandfather was named Mike, so that's a positive association for me. Mike actually has a unique 8-step process for engineering emotional breakthroughs. And that's what I wanted to talk to him about today. But Mike, just before we do, could I just get a little bit about your background and how long you've been doing what you're doing and kind of how you came to be who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been coaching now for, I'd say, about 12 years. I'm one of Ian Levitzon's spiritual life coaches on her website at Intervisions Worldwide. And in case people don't know, Ian Levitzon she's one of Oprah's life coaches, Oprah's Life Class. People may have seen her there.
Very famous woman.
If you're ever at her website at Intervisions Worldwide and you look up her coaches there, I'm one of her coaches there.
That's some good credibility.
Pretty decent. And I've been through many different types of coaching, facilitating type programs. I think I've calculated over 1,000 hours of coaching, facilitating training, and multiple dualities of coaching. So I have quite a repertoire of coaching in that respect. That's pretty much me in a nutshell. I mean, I can go on and on and on, which I love to do. But
well, I do want you to go on and on about lots of things. You're more than qualified, and they wouldn't have you on if you weren't. So I'm glad that we got to know that about you. And then talk to me about how you came to this 8-step process, and why is it important, what does it produce, and what is the process?
Basically, the way that I came up with this process was I had been coaching for several years. And I know you know this as a coach yourself, Glenn. There's so many different tools that you can learn as a coach. I literally have hundreds. I'm sure you have hundreds of tools as well. What I have found is in all these tools, for me, I kind of developed this myself throughout the years. It's kind of my own method, 8 steps to coaching a client through a breakthrough. I think the single most important thing is being able to facilitate or coach a client to have or experience an actual breakthrough. And the reason I think that is because a breakthrough is the very thing that's going to have them make a real change in their life. I think it's about 50% of the work. If they can actually have an internal discovery on their own.
Could you give me an example?
There's a way that a coach can come to you and they can talk to you or they can give advice. But when someone has an internal breakthrough, it's something that you feel like you discover on your own in the context of a session about yourself or about something that happened in your life. And then when that happens, it stays, as opposed to the person, offering you advice. That's why I think it's important. The skill of being able to coach someone through a breakthrough is critical.
I'll give you an example from my own personal life. I went through a very severe financial downturn right around 9/11. We were involved in a research facility. We were spending $150,000 a month, which we didn't really have. We'd made a lot of money in some other ways, and we kind of stepped outside of our core competencies, and we just basically lost it all, and then some. We wound up $700,000 in debt, and it was just a miserable, miserable time. For probably 2 years, I was furious at the person who kind of advised me in that direction, who was actually at that point a coach. Most coaches don't do that. But I remember talking to someone after that, another coach, and they asked me, said, well, what if it's true that it's his fault? What good does that do you? They asked me, are you going to sue them? And I said, no, I'm not going to sue him. He's done too many fantastic things for me in my life, and I'm so much better in so many other ways. I'm just never going to sue the guy. He said, are you going to drive to his house and beat him up? And he said, no, I'm not going to do that. He said, well, what if you could get him to admit that it was totally his fault? What good would it do you? What purpose does it serve for you to grind the axe and cogitate on all that negativity? And there's that old Buddhist saying that says, a man who pursues revenge should dig 2 graves. And for me, that was a breakthrough. I remember that moment. It was actually in the car on Route 102 driving to a 7-Eleven, and I remember exactly where I was on the route, and I remember something just utterly lifted from me, and it's like all the energy inside me turned around from pursuing revenge to thinking, okay, well, so now what? Now what do I want to do with my life? And the rest of the story is we were back on track, and we paid back the debt, and we kind of rose from the ashes, and now we're doing terrifically. That was a breakthrough. That's an example of a breakthrough for me. It sounds like you've systematized the process of questioning and being with people so you can make that happen. Maybe we could talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that example. It's a perfect example of what you have to deal with, because one of the single biggest thing that you have to learn to deal with when you're coaching your clients to having a breakthrough is resistance. Like you were using in your example right there, obviously you had some kind of resistance. You were upset or you were angry. Whatever it was that you were experiencing, it was an internal experience. It's usually 2 types of resistance. There's what I call mental or thought pattern experiences, like why is this happening to me, or whatever was going on in your head about that. This shouldn't happen. I don't like him. The second type is emotional or feeling blockages, and that could be like anger or fear or sadness. Maybe you were experiencing some of those feelings.
Feelings that consume you. Sure, I was.
Exactly. Those are the main type of internal resistances that we have to learn to deal with as coaches to be able to move somebody through an emotional experience or a repetitive thought pattern that they're not letting go. Obviously, if they don't move past that thought pattern or that emotional experience, then they're just going to keep doing the same thing and producing the same results because they're going to take the same actions.
What are the 8 steps? How do you do that?
Yeah, so the 8 steps are this. The first step is basically to set a clear intention for yourself as a coach prior to the session. To me, this is critical. I did this before I even did this session with you. So I always do this prior to going into the session. You could set your own intention, but the idea is you want to have an intention about where you want to be in relationship to the client or how you want to serve them. I'll just give you an example. This is the intention I usually say to myself. I say it's my intention to be a spirit in which conduit flows through so that spirit facilitates the highest healing and growth to fulfill the highest potential for the highest good of all. And I see wholeness in myself and I see wholeness in this client. I let it be that, so be it, and so it is. So I know that down pat, but it's the intention that I say that I'm bringing in to the session for the client and for myself. The intention itself will create a space that you step into. So that's the first step.
That's a very kind-hearted way to go about it.
Just real quick, one of the things I say about intentions, people have different energy around intentions. They're like, I don't believe in intentions, and I don't want to set them. And one of the things I'll say to people, the people listening, is that we'll always have some kind of intention that's running. Whether you believe it in intention or you think it intention or not, there's some intention that's running. And if we don't consciously call forth an intention, then that intention that you're not setting is going to be running you anyways. So I always encourage people to set a conscious intention or some other subversive intention can end up being running the session or running you.
Sure. You might not be aware of it, but you're thinking this guy coming to see me is an evil bastard and I'm just going to get his money.
Exactly. There is some intention that can unconsciously overtake you and be operating through the whole session. And that's what people really get, is your underlying intention. It's not even so much about what you're saying to them. That's important too, though. So that's step 1, setting intention for yourself. Step 2 is, in the session itself, you want to connect with the person immediately. Maybe this is the first time you've had a session with them. Whether it's the first time or the second time, it doesn't really matter. You can still connect with the person, and I usually take about 2 to 3 minutes to do that. And there's a pretty simple way to connect with them. You just ask them. You say, how are you doing? What's been happening? What's going on? Just listen to them for a little while and connect with them, and then maybe you share a little bit with them about what's been happening with you or who you are. If it's the first time, obviously you want to say who you are and what you do, but in a short way. I'm always mindful about this because when I was new to coaching or when I see new coaches, you don't want to let connecting become a 20-minute thing. You could talk forever about how you're doing or how they're doing, and they can actually start to launch into the problem. I say, hey, how are you doing? They say, oh my God, I lost all my money and my girlfriend left me. Then they're launching into the problem before you even set an intention for that session. If that does happen, I'll stop them. I'll listen to them for about 2 minutes and say, hey, can I just pause you for 1 second? You want to make sure that you create the space where they can say whatever they want to say. Say, I want to hear what you have to say, but can I just pause you? It's really important that we set an intention for this session. And you're going to get to say everything you want to say right now, but I just want to make sure we set this intention. Can we do that? One of the things I would do with my client is I get permission. Permission is a huge, huge, huge thing in coaching. So I'll ask their permission. Hey, I apologize. Can I stop you? Can we do this? And then usually they'll say, yeah, we can do that. Once we do that, then I move to step 3, which is to coach the person through an intention in the session. And before I move on to step 3, do you have any questions? I mean, I could go through all these steps straight through, Glenn, but I want to check in with you to see.
Oh, no, I'm quiet because I like what you're saying, and I think you're setting a solid foundation and then having to listen with genuine interest and kind-hearted spirit. Everything's making perfect sense. That's why I'm quiet. With me, no news is good news. I'll speak up if I don't like something or I need to clarify something.
Okay, that's perfect. I just kind of want to check in with you first so it's more of a conversation, not me just going through all the steps.
You're doing great. I'm very interested in what you're saying.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And then step 3 is basically to coach your client into their own intention for the session. I have a simple formula that works really, really well for this that I want to offer your audience here, Glenn. It's pretty much this. I tell them a little bit about setting intentions. Sometimes you have to coach a client through an intention. And so I'll tell them that. I'll say, hey, we're going to set an intention for this session. And I have a little formula that I'm going to give you. It may be very simple for you to set the intention. And if it is, that's great. If not, I might have to coach you a little bit through the intention, but the intention needs to be yours. It's not mine, it's yours. That's a very important thing. This is not me setting an intention, it's them setting an intention for themselves.
What would be an example of an intention that they might set?
Let me get to the formula. So the formula is this, and I ask them to write this down or to repeat it, and they'll say something like, it is my intention to feel, fill in the blank, and be, fill in the blank, about, fill in the blank.
That's interesting.
And I do this for a very specific reason, because before, over many years, when I had them set the intention, I would just say, set an intention, and they would tend to just go off. It would become this complex thing about what they want. Before I even set the intention, one of the things that I'll do is I'll get present to them about what area in their life. That's going to be the about part of the intention. I'll just say, hey, what area of your life right now is holding the most energy for you? There's only so many areas, and I know you know this as a coach, Glenn. There's going to be like their relationships, business, career, money, health. These are like the 5 main areas. There's not many more areas in life other than that people contend with or they deal with. So I help them to narrow it down. And it's usually right there. And it doesn't even really matter what I'm coaching them on. I coach in many different areas. I've been a business coach, a life coach, a spiritual coach, a career coach. So even if I'm coaching them in the context of business, let's say, often what a client might be dealing with right there has to do with their relationship. It's all relevant. If that's what's there for them, if all they can think about is their relationship with their girlfriend or their wife, and they're having a hard time focusing this session, I say, let's deal with that right now, because these are all interconnected. And I know you know this as well. Right?
I often do that with my business coaching clients. The relationship eventually comes into play. It has to.
It totally does. So I always follow the energy. So I'm like, where's your energy right now? That's all they can think about is their relationship. I say, let's deal with that so you can have a breakthrough in that, so that we can move on to your business stuff. And they say, okay. So for instance, the area might be their relationship. So that's going to be the about part of the intention. And then I just give them the formula, and then I say, go ahead and fill in the blank. And then I give them a moment. And I say, only use one word for those blanks. Don't use multiple words, just use one word. And so then they'll create the intention. They'll fill in the blank. So they might say something like, it's my intention to feel happy and to be at peace about my relationship with my wife. That's a great intention. And then I'll say, hey, that's a perfect intention. That's awesome. Now, sometimes they might set the intention and they'll say something like, it's my intention to feel like I don't hate my wife and be less upset about my relationship with my wife. Now, that's when I'll step in and I'll say, hey, that's awesome that you set that intention. May I coach you? Again, permission. May I coach you on that intention? Because we want this to be a clear, positive intention. So if they're focused on what they don't want, if they say, it's my intention to feel less angry, if they focus on what they don't want, then they're going to create anger.
Our unconscious doesn't really understand the negative. It requires more energy to interpret a sentence that has a negative in it than it does to interpret a sentence that has in the positive, because you first have to understand what the sentence would mean without the negative, then you have to negate it. And the problem with that is that it's fine when you're focused and clear, but in the heat of the moment, in the course of our everyday lives, the sentences or affirmations which include negative statements, I don't want to fight with my wife. What happens is your mind doesn't have the time to make the flip, and so it's almost as if you're walking around saying, I want to fight with my wife, I want to fight with my wife, I want to fight with my wife. People don't really get that, but it's very important to phrase it in the positive.
Exactly. And so what I'll do at that point is, if it's not a clear positive intention, then I'll ask their permission to adjust it. They usually say, yes, you can help me. And then I'll adjust. It's my intention to feel happy, or it's my intention to feel joy. It's usually just one word. One word works best. If they're using all kind of multiple words, it can get a little bit hairy. Simpler is always better. So then once they set that intention, I'll say, that's great, that's awesome. And then I just have them repeat the intention with as much believability as they possibly can. Like, I really have them center themselves. I say, sit down. Are you sitting down? Yes. Sit down. Close your eyes. Now I want you to state that intention with as much believability as you can possibly muster. Like, really get into it. Just take a deep breath. I have them get them centered. And then they really state the intention. And so once they state that intention, then I just have them take a deep breath in, release it, and then from that point, and this goes into step 4, I ask them a question. What is present with you right now? From this space that you're in, what's there right now? And then I say this to them just like this. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be anything. Just tell me what you're thinking, what you're feeling right now. It's crazy how this works, Glenn, but whatever they bring up, it doesn't matter. It might not even be about the intention that they just set. It's relevant. And so they'll start talking about something. I don't have an example of it right here, right now, but whatever it is, I start to follow them and I listen. So now this moves into step 5. And step 5 is listening very deeply and very closely to everything that they said. Part of what I'll do is active listening. For people who don't know what active listening is, you're basically giving a person back what they're saying. You don't want to necessarily parrot it back verbatim, but you want to give them an experience that they're being heard for what they're saying. You're really being with them. They cannot say anything wrong. At this point, I'm not even necessarily coaching them. I'm just listening to them and really getting their world and what's happening.
We're reflecting and supporting the process of verbalizing what's on their mind with regards to the intention that they stated at that time. And you're making it safe for them to think all the thoughts and feel all the feelings surrounding that intention. And you need to do that so that you can get everything out on the table. I don't mean to upstage you. I'm sure that that's where you're going. Because the essence of unleashing your client's creative genius, and everybody has creative genius inside of them, is making it possible for them to think thoughts that they couldn't think by themselves, that weren't safe for them to think by themselves. And if you make it possible for them to do that, they will come up with a solution. They will. I understand why this works. Please continue.
Yeah, that's right in alignment with what I do. So what I'm doing is I'm listening in a specific way to the client. Like I'm listening to their inner leader. They actually have an inner leader who has the answer already. And it's amazing how this works because at the end, when it all happens, the person thinks that I'm a great coach and I did something great, but I was actually just listening. They were the one that was actually leading the process, and it seems like I was, but I'm listening to them.
Very typical. They'll say, I don't know how you guys do what you do. You must have to study for eons to do what you do. And you're like, dude, I was just listening. But see, that's the thing, Mike, is that people aren't listened to in life. It's an amazing opportunity.
It is, and I think that's one of the biggest benefits of having a great coach. They listen really well. So as I'm going through step 5 takes the majority of the session. I'm really listening to them. And I'm listening specifically to their inner leader. And you can just have a simple intention if you're a coach to say, I'm listening to their inner leader. That inner leader will tell you where it's going and how to fulfill the intention. I have their intention in front of me, by the way, as well, so I'm present to that. I write that down myself. What ends up happening, every session is absolutely unique the way that it goes down. But what I can say is this, is that ultimately what's going to happen is they're going to be in resistance. Usually right off the bat, they're going to bring up what I was telling you about earlier, some kind of emotional resistance, which is fear, anger, sadness, or mental limiting thought form pattern resistance, which is I can't do it, I'm not good enough, nobody likes me, they won't help me, these repetitive limiting thought form patterns. And so when they hit that resistance, they're really in what I would call in their resistance. At some point, I'll step in, again, going back to permission, then I will offer a process. I'm not going to go into processes because I have a gazillion processes that I take people through. And I'll say, can I offer you something? And they'll say, yeah. And I say, well, what I like to do is I want to take you through a process that can help you to move through what you're dealing right here. Are you open to trying something different? I'm wanting them to say, yes, I am.
What do you do if they say no? I would imagine it's rare that they would say no if you've done everything right to that point.
It is, and I'm glad you brought that up. I don't even know if I ever heard that, but it's a great question. So if they do say no, by the way, them saying no is a form of resistance. This is a great question, Glenn, because there's times, and it's happened to me, and I'm sure it's happened to you, where a client will start to resist you as a coach. They're resisting coaching or being coached by you. I ask them something like that, and they say no, then they're resisting either me or they're resisting being coached. The way that I deal with this is that I let them resist me. I don't try to overcome their resistance. Anytime trying to overcome somebody's resistance never, ever, ever, ever works. Trust me, because I've tried it a million times. The more you try to overcome someone's resistance, the more resistant they become.
Exactly. What I teach my students is to have an attitude of intrigue, accepting intrigue, and just to be very curious about client resistance, because client resistance is just a natural part of the process. People don't develop blocks, unless they're really crazy, and coaches typically don't work with crazy people. People don't develop blocks for no reason. They've had experiences. There are people in their environment who maybe are not facilitating these other solutions. There are things that you're going to do to shake up their world, and there are good reasons that they have these walls. And every time one comes up, it's almost like an opportunity for you to learn more about them and over time help them grow more. But they need to have the experience that it's perfectly okay to have these walls if they want to have these walls, and you're not going to domineer them and force through them.
Exactly. I don't necessarily say this to them, Glenn, but I'm telling you the way that I coach or the way that I think. When someone says no, I honor that no. it's a boundary, or it's whatever you want to call it.
This is a little bit more of a psychological comment than a coaching comment, but it's relevant because what people don't understand sometimes is that saying no is a part of childhood development where we start to form our identity. When we're able to say no, we recognize that we're separate human beings with autonomy. Mom might want us to do X, but we want to do Y, and we have the capability to say no. And if you take that away from people, if you take away their ability to say no, then you're taking away their autonomous self. Coaching is really about encouraging people to feel more autonomous and able to master their environment and make their own decisions and be the master of their own fate. And being able to say no is a good part of that. So in some ways, having the experience of saying no to you makes it possible for them to be stronger in the world. It's not an utterly defiant no. It's being able to say no and have the experience that the relationship goes on in a constructive way, even though they said no.
Absolutely. It totally is. And when they say no, I might say something like, how can I serve you right now?
That's interesting.
I literally think of it like a ball, a physical ball. And you can imagine, like, I have the ball, and then I hand you the ball, right? And then you have the ball, and then you hand me the ball. When a client says no to me, I feel like they're handing me the ball. They're saying, here, no, here's the ball. And I'll hand the ball back, and I say, how can I be of service to you? I'm handing the ball back to them. So the ball is now in their hands.
What might they typically say at that point?
They could say a million things, Glenn, but they could just say, I don't want to do this anymore. Or they could say, the way that you could help me is just listen to me. Or the way I want you to help me is tell me what to do. Tell me what to do.
How can I be of service to you? That's a brilliant question. I have to say I really respect your brilliance with that because it accepts the client's negativity and it facilitates further progress by putting the ball back in their court and giving them an opportunity to be constructive in a different way. I'm very, very impressed with that, Michael. I hadn't heard that before. I'm very impressed.
Thank you. And using that specifically in that situation, don't take it personally. They may be resisting you, or they just may be resisting coaching in general. I resist coaching. People will resist coaching.
It's a good sign when that happens because it means that they're ready to deepen the relationship. They're ready to show you this other side of themselves that they don't show to people in polite conversation.
Absolutely. I don't even know if I've had a situation where I went further than that. Maybe once where a client is just in total shutdown resistance. If they are, and I say, how may I be of service to you? And they're just like, I don't know. You can't do anything. They just offer more resistance. I would ultimately say, you know what? It's totally okay. We can just end this now. And then we can pick it up and do another session next week if you want to do that. It's totally okay.
I've also told clients that maybe we should just sit silently together for a while.
That's a great one, too. That's perfect because it creates the space where they don't have to do anything.
The other technique that I've used in those situations is for me to use that opportunity to talk a lot. I could use it as a recap of what's gone on. I could tell the client some story I've been wanting to tell them about, some thought I've been having about what they talked about so far. Sometimes I could just even talk about some movie they were talking about before, or as long as in what I'm talking about, I'm not telling them what to do or necessarily revealing too much about myself personally and doing it for my own needs. I find that when you talk more, it whets the client's appetite for them to talk. Eventually they'll say, okay, enough already, I'm ready to talk. And when you're quiet, it helps them to be more quiet. So let's get to the other steps, though, because we got on this interesting tangent and we haven't gotten to the last two steps.
Yeah, I'll take them through a process to release whatever the resistance is. And again, I'm not going to get into all that. There's many processes to releasing resistance that we could go through. This leads to step 6. So they'll go through the process. They will have released resistance. They will have had some kind of breakthrough, either a huge breakthrough or a small breakthrough. Don't get caught up in the magnitude of the breakthrough. People can have huge breakthroughs and it doesn't seem like anything's happening over there.
Yes, you don't have to get caught up with the feeling of the breakthrough either. There are some things where there is a subtle shift in the way that they think, and then 6 months later you see that it had a dramatic impact on their behavior and their life, but at the moment it didn't really feel like anything special. There's no way to really get you to believe that as a new coach until you've had the experience a few dozen times. So in the beginning, you're kind of looking for the feelings in the room as reinforcement, but what the ultimate reinforcement for how well you're doing as a coach is really the results that you get. And that's why I tell coaches to look back every 6 months or so when they're working with ongoing clients. Sometimes my clients do programs, but when you're working with ongoing clients, look back every 6 months or so and ask yourself, how have they progressed in their life? And when you look at the original goals that they set, are they moving forward towards their goals? And that's how you assess progress with a client, not how it feels in the room at the moment.
Right, totally. What I would say as a real breakthrough is when a person has an internal discovery. I call it an internal discovery. That means they have an inner knowing It's not because you said something to them as a coach. It's because you created the space in which they could have an internal knowing, an internal discovery of something about themselves. It feels like they did it. Hey, I did it myself. If you coach one-on-one, face-to-face, you can often see that moment on their face, in their eyes. It's like, boom, there it is. It's like it is a moment in time. And it's like they got it, whatever it is for themselves. So step 6 is what I call grounding the energy. So they just had this great breakthrough. They usually feel pretty great. There's a shift. There's a heightened sense of energy and excitement. They feel free. They feel light. And I work with that energetically. That's still part of the process. But the idea is you want to ground that energy into the real physical world.
I don't quite understand that, Michael.
They're going to be having somewhat of an experience energetically in terms of their emotions or a feeling energy. They might feel lighter, or they might feel free, or they feel that release of whatever the resistance was. It's an experiential type of feeling that's happening inside of their body or in their mind. Lightness, freedom. The way that I ground energy is I'll get them present to, right after they just had the breakthrough, I'll say, what's happening in your body right now? What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? And they'll start to tell me. In my heart, I'll say, where is it located in your body? So they'll say, in my heart, I feel warm, it feels light. I'll say, is there a color there? And they'll say, yeah, it's like a white color. And so I get them present to the experience that they're having inside, and I go into that experience in their body, and I expand it. I'm not going to keep going. I'll keep going further and further in what they're experiencing. Part of this is NLP. NLP is another coaching technique. They do a movement or they do something where they ground that experience in their body with snapping their finger or putting their hand somewhere on their heart. So they remember this experience and ground it. So that's step 6. Going into step 7, and this is very critical, and I know you know this as a coach, is to have them bring that energy, because obviously they just had a wonderful breakthrough and they feel great, is to take that energy out into the physical world to manifest whatever it is that they want to manifest, to bring their goals into reality. And that's through taking action. So there's a specific inspired action that they want to take.
You ask them to decide what that is?
Exactly. I'll say right now where you're at, and this is step 8, because they're in that experience, they grounded the energy. I said, is there an inspired action that occurs for you to take out in the physical world? So when I ask that question, sometimes people say, yeah, I just feel good and I want to go out and play and have fun. Like they might be general about what they're saying. The idea is to get them a specific action. Usually it's right there. You don't have to dig for it. They'll know what they want to do. And it's usually related, ironically enough, to the intention. And so they'll say, I'm going to go and talk to my girlfriend and tell her that I love her. That's a specific action that they're going to take out in the world. Action is the bridge between the inner world and the outer world. It's critical in all coaching or nothing's going to happen.
This is very impressive. Very well thought through, a nice structure for a session. Do you get through all 8 steps in every session?
Yes. It's weird. I didn't even know that I had these 8 steps until I sat down and kind of mapped it out, and I realized this is the way that I always do it. So I created this myself based on many things that I've learned, and I put it together, and it flows this way pretty much every time. And then just real quick, with step 8, this is really powerful, Glenn, is that I asked them this question. I say, do you remember what your intention was? And they usually don't. If they wrote it down, they did. But I know what it is because I wrote it down. And I said, do you remember what your intention is? And they'll say yes or no. Or if they say yes, I'll say, what was it? And then I'll have them read the intention again, or I'll read them the intention. This is the question I ask them. I say, did you fulfill part or all of that intention? Often, they will have fulfilled all of it. Sometimes it's part of it, and that's fine. Again, don't worry about whether it's all the intention or part of it. And then they'll say, yeah, I received part of it. And I'll say, how much of it? And they might say 80% or 50% or whatever, or 100%. And if it's part, I just say, that's awesome. I just want you to get that. You want the client to get that they were in one place and they moved to another place. And they can feel that difference from where they set the intention to now where they are in fulfilling the intention. And often what I'll say to them, if they say they fulfill 50% of the intention, I promise them, when you take this action, that other part of that intention, I believe it's going to be completely fulfilled. And then it's awesome, and it's the way the session ends right there.
Is this typically in a 45-minute session, or are they a little longer?
Yeah, I usually set my sessions for 45 minutes. Sometimes they might go as long as an hour. And sometimes they might even go a little bit longer depending on if I have to take them through some process. I usually leave half hours between my sessions. So it could go an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and 30 minutes. That's rare. It's usually 45 minutes to an hour.
It's rare that I hear coaches that actually leave that amount of time for themselves. And when I hear that, I say, this guy is a good coach. When I hear that, I say that this guy's a good coach because I know that you're walking the walk. You're taking the time in between to do what you just told me that you did, to put yourself in the right place and take some time for self-care and get ready for the next client. I really like to hear that. Most coaches try to jam people in the hour. Very nice. Well, this has really been an education for me, Mike, I'm sorry. I really appreciate this. And if people in my audience would like to get in touch with you or learn a little bit more about you, do you have a website? Do you have other offerings? Would you prefer to leave them an email or a phone number? How should we do this?
I put something together, basically a 90-day coaching program that I put together that's around this specifically, and it's for business, career, relationship, spiritual coaches. It's for all coaches, and it's on how to coach your clients so they have a profound breakthrough that transforms their life forever. And it's a 90-day coaching program. You can find out more about that program by going to coachwithmikebrown.com. That's www.coachwithmikebrown.com, and you'll see that program there. I mean, it explains it all there, but you'd work one-on-one with me coaching, where I'm going to coach and train you around this process, take it further and even deeper than what you just heard here in this session. And basically what you'll get at is you'll learn how to master the 8 steps of coaching your client to a breakthrough every time. Further, learn how to create a space for your client to open up and have a breakthrough. One of the things that I'm going to give in that is recorded actual breakthrough coaching sessions that I've had with my clients myself that you can listen to, where you can actually hear what's happening, hear the coaching session, and see how that works in actual breakthrough coaching session of me coaching one of my clients. I'll do like 7 one-on-one coaching sessions with you. The other thing that I'll do is I'll actually take you through a breakthrough. I'll coach you through a breakthrough yourself so that you can have the experience of what that's like going through that. That provides tremendous value for when coaching your clients. And the rest of the package is there at coachwithmikebrown.com.
Very nice.
In just 12 weeks, you can become a certified professional coach, confident in your ability and fully equipped to grow a thriving practice from anywhere or your money back. My name is Dr. Glenn Livingston, and I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes about taking your coaching dreams a lot more seriously, about getting the right certification and training, and about developing the confidence to deliver stellar results time after time so your clients will accomplish their goals, others will notice, and get referred back to you. I'll hope you forgive my modesty while we talk, because my wife and I have more combined experience in both coaching and business development than virtually any other program on the market. I've personally worked with over 1,000 clients and supervised dozens of coaches and therapists, sharing some literally thousands of groups and team-building workshops. And together we've sold more than $20 million in consulting. We've had our previous work, research, and theories covered in major media like the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, the Chicago Sun-Times, ABC and CBS Radio, the Wall Street Journal, New York Daily News, and many more. So we have the confidence in our ability to train and certify you as a coach and give you the know-how to build the practice of your dreams. In fact, we're so confident, we're willing to guarantee it right through the end of the very last class. If you don't feel our training was your best choice for any reason, just show us you attended at least 3/4 of the classes and did at least 75% of the assignments. We will refund every penny that you paid. When you compare our experience, guarantee, and more affordable than most pricing, we think your choice will be clear. But if you're like most coaches, you're probably a little skeptical, maybe a lot. You see a lot of limitations and obstacles, and I'd like to talk about them with you because most of them are self-imposed. For example, you might think it's not really possible to earn a living as a professional coach. Maybe you think there's too much competition. But did you know that as of this recording, there were only about 20,000 active coaches in North America? That's less than 1 coach for every 15,000 people. Of course, not every one of those 15,000 people is in the market for a coach, but coaching has become ever more acceptable and interesting thanks to reality shows like The Biggest Loser, The Voice, dancing shows, singing shows, et cetera, et cetera. Every one of the contestants gets a coach, and the audience gets to see the value firsthand as they progress. More importantly, most coaches ignore the immense value of niching. There's literally hundreds of coaching niches to choose from, and when you do niche, you dramatically lower your competition and raise your odds of success. For example, where there may be 20,000 active coaches overall in North America, how many adoption coaches do you think there are? What about coaches who specialize in chocolate addiction? By the way, I could use one of those. Family business, academic achievement, and you don't have to marry any of these niches either. You just try one on to size, learn the skills, and transfer them to whatever suits your fancy later on. But here's another self-imposed limitation. Many people think it's simply not possible to earn a living as a coach.
Well, you can visit becomearealcoach.com
To see detailed studies which suggest the average active coach earns about $55,000 per year. Of course, there are coaches who make a lot more and coaches who make a lot less. And it would be unreasonable to assume just getting certified will automatically give you this income. Your income as a coach will depend upon many things, including the niche you choose. For example, working with affluent couples to help them adopt is likely to be more lucrative than helping disabled veterans adjust to life at home. Not any more meaningful, fulfilling, or soulful, but definitely more profitable. The environment you work in will also influence your income. Private practice versus a salaried employee, etc. The number of hours you choose to fill. Nobody says you have to work full time. The fees that you're comfortable charging. There's a lot of coaches out there that don't want to charge as much as they really could charge. The business model that you choose, in other words, individual coaching versus selling books, tapes, seminars, groups, and events for more leveraged and passive income. The seriousness of the problem that you specialize in. How desperate are your clients to solve it? How meaningful and valuable is the solution? For example, it's easier to earn more as an adoption coach than a yoga coach for this very reason. And your income also depends upon how much effort you put into attracting clients. But most importantly, in our experience, your income is related to your coaching confidence and ability to produce stellar results for your clients. Or maybe the obstacle stopping you from taking your coaching dreams to the next level is wondering whether you need a professional background in therapy or counseling. But you don't, because coaching isn't therapy. So you won't get involved in diagnosing, treating, or curing any type of mental illness. And we'll teach you how to clearly draw the line and skillfully refer clients who require a licensed professional. When in doubt, refer it out is our motto. Coincidentally, many of these professionals who you refer to can become a good resource of referrals back into your network. Maybe you're not sure if you're worthy of coaching. Maybe you think you don't have enough experience, or you're just not credible enough to coach people professionally, or that you don't have the expertise. When people tell me this, I tell them that they're asking the wrong question. You see, if you're willing to put your heart and soul into helping someone, if you're willing to give them your undivided attention on a regular or semi-regular basis until they reach their goal, if you're willing to make them a priority in your life in exchange for a reasonable payment, then the real question is, you should be asking, are these clients worthy of me? Because you see, you've only got a limited amount of time, energy, and love to give these people, so you've got to protect your practice. The real question is, are they worthy of you? Maybe you don't think you have the time to become a certified professional coach, but if you can make 4 or 5 hours a week, which is under an hour a day, for just a few months, you can definitely become a certified professional coach in our program. And there are many, many ways to start a coaching practice on a part-time schedule. We know most coaches have very busy lives even before they begin. And because we actually like coaches who are out there living real lives, we work hard to accommodate them. Coaching is more about experience and the desire to share and spare than it is about book knowledge. Maybe you think you can't afford it. But our program is much more affordable than most other live interactive certification programs, and we've got financing options to suit any budget. Besides, coaching is one of the least expensive businesses to start because you can work with people all over the world via telephone, Skype, and the internet. So there's really no need for office space, rent, or other overhead. And we'll show you how to make a safe transition plan so you can carefully plan your move from another job with a great deal of confidence when the time is right. Because you are the product, this is another reason why coaching is easier to get into and less expensive, because you are the product. Many of the traditional costs associated with starting a business, like inventory or research and development, production cost, they just simply disappear. So, at the risk of appearing self-serving, a better question than, can you really afford to do this, is, can you really afford not to do it? Finally, perhaps you think you're going to be a great coach, but you're too allergic to marketing to do anything about it. And if you feel this way, it's likely because you've been taught the wrong things about marketing. You're probably thinking of used car salesmen, cold calling, constant rejection, and constant lies. And nobody's taken the time to find out what marketing methods really suit your personality. Remember, Sharon and I have more combined experience in both coaching and business development than virtually any other certification program on the market. That means we've got the flexibility to help virtually any coach who wants it bad enough. You can check out our website at becomearealcoach.com for more details about our personal biographies. But for now, just trust me when I say if you don't like public speaking, there's no problem. If you hate making cold calls, there's no problem. If you can't even stand the idea of making a website, there's no problem, because we'll show you how to market in a way that's comfortable for you. Now, by this point, you may actually be wondering what happens in the certification program itself. Again, you can visit becomearealcoach.com to read the details, but in a nutshell, our program is largely about the experience of being a coach and not the academic. Each week, you'll meet live with your instructor and your peers and have the experience of practicing that week's coaching or business development lesson with everybody in the group. You'll get detailed feedback from your master coach instructor, and you'll get additional feedback from your peers. And here's an important benefit most people don't think of. You'll get a chance to observe and learn from the other coaches in training. Then, after each event, you'll download a brief set of materials which prepare you for the following week and include an action challenge. So in short, first you practice with your peers, then you watch, read, or listen to us describe what you just experienced, and finally you do it on your own outside of class so you can integrate the learning. Practice, study, then do. It's really that simple in less than an hour a day. There's quite a bit more to know.
So you'll want to visit becomearealcoach.com as soon as you can.
But the most important thing to remember is that in just 12 weeks, you really can become a certified professional coach, confident in your ability, and fully equipped to grow a thriving practice from anywhere or your money back. Head on over to becomearealcoach.com now. Classes fill quickly, so please book your slot today if you're at all interested. Thanks.